All right, so for today's warm up, I want you to go to your Otis assessments and open up your double entry journal assignment from yesterday. Go to your Otis assessments and open up your double entry journal assignment from yesterday. Remember that you filled out just one of the spaces, not all three, because we only read the chapter for Friday, August 18th. Which sentence did you choose to comment on? Copy and paste or write the sentence in the chat bar. Which sentence did you choose to comment on? Write the sentence in the chat bar. And remember, it should be an exact sentence from the book. You don't need to tell me about your commentary, just the sentence that you picked. And remember, of course, to use your legal first and last name, be on mute, and have your video turned on for attendance and engagement purposes. All right, so today's agenda was the attendance and warm-up, our week in review, and then we'll do our narrative elements vocabulary with the focus on characterization. Our objective today is to understand characterization terminology by taking notes, and our overall objective is to use it to analyze the character's choices and the consequences of those choices. You will not need any materials today besides the computer that you have. This week, we started a new bell schedule. I'm kind of curious to see whether or not you liked it, whether the 1 hour for lunch was nice, whether you felt rushed or more focused. But hopefully it was a positive thing for you. We reviewed your Tangerine introduction form and plot vocabulary test. We also read the prologue and foreword of Tangerine. We answered Tangerine questions on a Padlet board. We completed Springboard pages 163 to 165. And we learned about double entry journals and completed one for the chapter Friday, August 18th. If you did not do that, please make sure you do that ASAP, because remember, you have independent work time from 1:53 to 3:14, where you can always finish your work if for some reason you didn't finish it in class. Later this period, we'll take characterization vocabulary notes, but we will continue reading Tangerine next week. Let's review our double entry journal. So yesterday, we learned about double entry journals, and I want to make sure that you understand the directions. So direction 1 is to copy an exact sentence from the book and type it under the textual evidence heading. Please remember, this is not your own words. You should find an exact sentence from the book to write down. Number 2, write down the page number where the sentence was found. I put the beginning page number for you so that you can at least find the chapter. Otherwise, you should be telling me, did you find on page 7? Did you find on page 8? Did you find on page 9, etc.? You don't need to find a sentence on page 7. It doesn't need to be someone talking. It's any sentence that stood out to you that you wanted to write about. Number 3, write one response to the chapter on the right side under commentary. Now remember, you can choose from any of these: a question that you have, maybe it was something you didn't understand, a detail or reason you thought it was important, some kind of connection that you could make with your own life or something else you've read or seen, a prediction for what's going to happen in the future, and possibly an inference or educated guess about something with that sentence. Remember, there are definitions of each of the commentary choices on the Google Doc that I gave you yesterday and in your Springboard book on page 165. So if you need any more information on what to put, you could look at these two things. So before we start our narrative elements characterization vocabulary, I just want to make sure that you did understand the double entry journal activity. You know that you're not pressing submit on yesterday's work because we're continuing that next week. You just were supposed to complete one. If you saw somebody's answer in the chat that you liked better than yours as a sentence, you're definitely welcome to change it, but please don't feel like you have to. So, for characterization vocabulary, we learned about characters when we talked about plot last week and the week before. And we specifically went over Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, the true story of the Three Little Pigs. When we took a look at the Pixar short for the birds, we took a look at a Pixar short for Lou. And I think even when we began to read Tangerine and we noticed certain things about Paul or his brother or his mom. And so now we're going to take a closer look at characterization so we can analyze it as we read Tangerine. I'm going to go over the characterization slides with you, and then when we're done, we can take notes on it. And just like always, I'll give you the characterization slides for you to use while you take notes. So go ahead and just listen today. So characterization is the way the author shows or tells the reader what the character is like. Usually an author does both. In a novel or short story, they normally show and tell what a character is like. Direct characterization is a statement in which the author tells you what the character is like. So they specifically say that the person is an extremely nervous student. You don't have to guess. They tell you exactly what a character is like. Indirect characterization is where the author shows the reader what the character is like, and it allows the reader to make their own decisions about the character. This is where inferences or predictions might come to light. Many authors use more indirect characterization and less direct characterization because it's more interesting for you to get to know the character through many different aspects, like what they think or what they say or what they do. Last year, you most likely looked at Augie when you read the book Wonder, and you probably specifically looked at indirect and direct characterization. Character traits are qualities in a person that cannot be seen. So if I'm naming someone as respectful or resilient or compassionate or dedicated or caring, these aren't things that I can take a look at a person, especially a stranger, and say, oh, they are caring, they are committed, they are inspiring. I would have to see them do something, or I'd have to see them say something, or in a book, I might need to read their thoughts in order to come to that conclusion myself. Motivation is why a character behaves the way that he does. This could be the same as with a conflict. It can be an internal motivation, like a reason why you want to do something internally in your heart, in your brain. Or it can be external motivation. So it can be somebody else making you do something, or maybe an animal that's making you run away because you're scared, or maybe a force of nature that's forcing you to put on rain boots or use an umbrella. So motivation is why a character behaves the way that he does. And we'll go ahead and look at this specifically with Tangerine. Point of view is the vantage point from which a story is told. Otherwise, this is known as a perspective. Everybody has a point of view, and stories can really differ depending on whose point of view it is that's telling the story. A narrator is the person who tells the story, specifically in books or short stories. Understanding who the narrator is really important for us to be able to determine, can we trust that person to tell us the truth? First person viewpoint is when the narrator is the character in the story. The narrator tells the reader only what he or she is thinking, feeling, and experiencing by using the first person pronoun I. This person is unreliable because we don't get to hear from the other characters. If a story is told only in first person viewpoint, we only know their side. They could be telling the truth, or maybe they're not. Third person viewpoint is when the narrator is not the character in the story. The narrator tells what the character thinks and experiences using the pronoun he, she, or they. This can be two types. It could be limited, where the narrator is talking just about one character, or it could be omniscient, where the narrator describes all of the characters, especially what they're thinking and feeling, as if they're like a god above all the action and they can see into all of their minds. We'll talk more about those viewpoints later, but I also want to teach you about textual evidence. Textual evidence is using an exact sentence or part of from something you didn't write to support an inference. We're going to be using textual evidence in our double entry journals and throughout the year. Sometimes textual evidence is called a quote, and it uses quotation marks followed by a paragraph or page number in parentheses. And something that's important about textual evidence is that it's always explained and integrated with words before and or after it when we use it in something like an essay or a paragraph, or to try to defend our inference or our prediction or our response to something. And then finally, a flashback is something that we talked about earlier this week, but I want to make sure you completely understand it because it's a very important part of Tangerine, and it's a very important part of the character Paul. So a flashback is an interruption in the sequence of events in the plot of a story to relate events that occurred in the past. Often movies use flashbacks to make things more exciting and to show you that definitely traumatic or inspiring or emotional events happened in the past that have affected that character now. And we're also going to see that in Tangerine. We'll complete characterization slides on characters from short stories and novels throughout reading Tangerine, and they will include actions, thoughts and feelings, speech, appearance, and other characters' reactions. We're really going to focus on the indirect characterization, and then we're going to make inferences and judgments about the characters based on that knowledge. We'll do that a little bit more next week, but I just wanted to give you a preview. So now we're ready to take characterization notes. I put the notes in your Otis assessments along with the slides containing the definitions. And I want to remind you that the slides are really, really small words in the top right-hand corner. Go ahead and click on those small words that say narrative elements, characterization vocabulary. It's above the rubric. And those little tiny words, remember, are the slides. So if you open up the slides, you can then take notes based on the slides that I just showed you and that are in your Otis assessments. Then go ahead and press submit when you're done. These are due today. If you don't have enough time during class, please finish them during your independent work time from 1:53 to 3:14. And we'll go ahead and take a quiz on these terms next week. And then next week, we'll also continue to read Tangerine and complete double entry journals. So I just want to make sure that you know that you have slides in your Otis assessments. They're the same slides that you just saw in the top right-hand corner or sometimes left-hand corner above your rubric. And then you have notes that you're filling in with the words. Based on the definitions in the slides. And then the last thing that I need to tell you today is that on Monday, I will not be having live Zoom. On Monday, I will not be having live Zoom. And the reason for this is because I'm taking my daughter to a 4-hour doctor appointment. And so I will not be here for the first couple classes of the day. I will post this in Otis. I will send you a reminder email, but we will not be having a live Zoom. I will, in fact, be absent, and I will be notifying the office that I am absent. Instead, what you're going to be doing on Monday is you're going to finish reading some Tangerine pages, and you're going to work on a double entry journal. I will post your assignment on your Otis class board, of course, with your Otis assessments, and I will email it to you. But I just wanted to let you know that on Monday, I'll not be having a live Zoom class. So you do not actually need to log into Zoom because there will be no one there to let you in. All right. Please make sure you are taking your characterization notes for the remainder of the period, and I will see you on Tuesday. You can go ahead and leave the Zoom class now.